Joining me now from Vancouver is Catherine Marshall. She's studying law at the University of Calgary. She has an undergraduate degree in women's studies, and she's here to talk with us about this prayer service in a Toronto public school where boys and girls sit separately. They come in through separate doors, and girls who are menstruating are singled out and told to sit at the back. Catherine, is this even legal in Canada?
Well, we're not, I mean, most of the charter cases that have dealt with religion in the public schools have said that religion doesn't have a place in our public school system, and that's the way that it should be. If parents want to choose a religious education for their kids, they're free to do so. Treating boys and girls as unequals in our school system is totally unacceptable. It may be the way that it's done in Islam, but in Canada, we've had gender equality since the Persons case, and our public education system should reflect Canadian civic values, and one of those core values is gender equality, and basically in treating boys and girls the same. But here's a case of girls having to sit at the back of the class in the public education system, and that is totally unacceptable.
Yeah, and I suppose that the Toronto school system said they wanted me to come in and give a lecture on Alfred the Great, and I said, hey, what a great idea. I want the boys to come in through a separate door. I want them sitting there. I want the girls further away from me. And by the way, hands up, you adolescent girls out there, any of you having your period right now, tell everybody about it and then go sit somewhere else because you're bugging us. Could I do that?
Oh, absolutely not. Look, if you did that, you'd have all the women's groups out to skewer you. You'd have all of the lawyers and the politicians and the journalists after you. But that's a great example, because if you were conducting a classroom teaching session and you made the girls sit at the back of the room and told the ones who had their period that they couldn't participate, I mean, that would be outrageous. But this is the exact same thing that's happening, but in the context of a prayer that's being condoned and accommodated by the public school system. And I've got to actually think that for those 13, 14-year-old girls who are being told to participate in something because they have their period, that must be, not only is that sexist and horrible, but it's also incredibly humiliating and traumatizing.
Well, exactly. I mean, coming of age is difficult for all of us. And one of the most awkward things about coming of age for women is these kinds of monthly changes in the body. And the idea that you're going to have this big sort of red arrow pointing at you from above going doot, 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 it seems to me it must be, you would just have to be agonizing.
Yeah, absolutely it would be. I mean, it would be incredibly embarrassing. Not only are you being told that you're not equal, but that, because of this biological thing that's happening to you that's natural, that it somehow means that you're, a lesser person. But my question is, where are the women's groups coming out and denouncing this? I mean, I have a women's studies degree, and I went to school with a bunch of feminists in training, and I'm wondering where are all of the women out there who are often talking about inequality and sexism in our school systems, who are coming out and saying that this is wrong. Why is Islam special? Why is this getting a free pass? Why are we allowing institutionalized sexism in our public school systems?
Yeah, and it's interesting you say, why is Islam special? Because there is this argument, we want to have religious accommodation. I mean, we live in a society where we don't laugh at people because they use a different name for God. We don't ridicule them or discriminate against them in the employment market because they pray in a different position or at a different time. But how far does that cover practices that seem to be at odds with our values? Is there some limit? And I was going to ask you, how far does the religious argument go? But because you've mentioned Islam, I'm going to ask instead, suppose a Christian group wanted to do this. Do you think that the school board would permit it? And do you think that there'd be an outcry if such a thing happened?
I think if there was another religion that wanted to hold special prayers or activities in the school that were very sexist in nature, they would not be allowed. And when it comes to religious accommodation in our public systems, I mean, is the Toronto public school system serving up kosher meals at lunchtime? Are they allowing their teachers to head up the Lord's Prayer in the morning? Absolutely not. So the question is, why is Islam special, and why are we giving them this free pass? And I think a huge part of it has to do with political correctness and these conflicting goals of multiculturalism and that political goal of accommodating multiculturalism, but then you also have individual liberty and values, and one of the most important individual liberties is the basic equality of genders, that boys and girls, women and men are equal, and they should be treated equally. And that's especially true, it has to be true in our public education system, and that's actually a huge point of conflict within our charter, where we do have provisions for the protection of cultures and religion, but then we also have a gender equality.
Well, it makes sense to me, and it makes sense to you, but apparently it doesn't make sense to the school board, and the strangest thing of all, it doesn't seem to make sense to the feminist groups. Very odd. Kathleen, thanks very much for joining us to talk about it. We'll be back after this.